Hi everyone, my name is Amber Benoit. I'm a seamstress, sewing teacher, and superhero to some here in Rochester, New York. I own Sewing by Amber Benoit, and I'm really excited to be here today to share with you guys how I make face masks. Now, I have gotten a ton of questions since this pandemic started, where people have been getting stuck on their sewing machines as they sew. I've even given a couple one-on-one classes, which is something that I offer virtually now, to help get through the humps that you're experiencing while trying to either sew face masks or on other projects that you're working on right now. So definitely, if that's something you're interested, reach out to me. sewingbyamber@gmail.com is the best place to reach me for that. But what I wanted to do today was share with you guys the process I take to make a sewing mask. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you what I do, how I do it, and hopefully that helps you to create your own mask right now. I know that it doesn't completely eliminate the chances of getting corona, but you know, better safe than sorry. Better anything we can do to help is what my philosophy is right now. So what are you going to need? What you're going to need is 2 pieces of fabric in a rectangle shape. Now for men, it's about a 9x10 that I use. For women, it's about a 6x9. For kids, it's about a 5x8 is what I generally use. And you can take or leave that depending on, you know, how big of a head you have, things like that. But you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric. I recommend 2 different prints so that you know what side is out, and what, in case you're wearing this to work and you take it off during your lunch break, you know what side to put back on your face. The fabric, to answer those questions, I know a lot of people are having questions about fabric. You want to use a cotton fabric that has a tight weave. Usually a quilting fabric will be fine. Basically what you you don't want to see any holes going through it. You want to have a nice tight weave. Looser weaves are things like knits. Some upholstery fabrics are a looser weave. So try to find a cotton, like I have a cotton broadcloth here, which is a really nice tight weave, and I have a cotton quilt because it's got a cool pattern, and who doesn't want to be cool? Then you're going to need 2 pieces of elastic. For men, I try to stick around 8 inches. For women, I try to do 7. For kids, I do smaller, and I really recommend, if you're making this for your child, to measure their ear just to get a better feel for how big to do. I think with my girls, I did maybe 5 or 6 inches, and I have a almost 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So I hope that helps. Okay, and you can see right for these, I'm using hair tie elastic because I couldn't source the 1/4 inch elastic, but you can try the 1/4 inch as well. You know, it's been really popular for that. So what we're going to do is just pick one of your pieces of fabric, and I'm going to start by basting the elastic to here. And why I do that is it's really annoying to try to work with the elastic as you're sewing, and just by getting it attached so you don't have to worry about pins helps a lot. So I just take one piece of the elastic, and I'm going to be using clips. You guys can use pins. There's nothing wrong with that. And in one corner, about your seam allowance width away. So my seam allowance is around 3/8, and so that's about how far I'm going to move from the side. And I'm going to pin that or clip that there. And then you're going to swing it around and do the same thing from the other corner. So again, I'm doing it about 3/8 from the corner. Okay, so it should look like something like this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a loose basting stitch, and I'm going to keep the basting stitch within my seam allowance, so about 1/4 inch. So hang on tight, guys, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have just attached the elastic on both sides so you can see what the one side looks like. Okay, and again, those elastic pieces are about a seam allowance away from the edge. If it's a little bit more than your seam allowance, it's no problem. If it's a little less than your seam allowance, don't sweat it. It's still going to be functional. It's not going to fall apart. One of the nice things is that basting stitch also serves to give a little bit extra strength to the elastic as it's being pulled behind your ears. Okay, so now you take your other piece of fabric and you're going to put these together with the right sides facing. So if you have a fabric like this, the right side's the side that has the print. Otherwise, it's pick a side. So right side's facing, and I usually start by matching up one corner. I'll be honest, when I do this in bulk, I don't usually clip because cotton stays together pretty well. And then the other corner. Notice that on this one though, I am clipping where those elastic pieces are, just because those are the most annoying thing to control out of this. Okay, so now you have a square, and what you're going to be doing is you're going to start about a third of the way in on this side. You're going to sew to this corner, turn the corner all the way up this side, all the way this way, and then you're going to stop so that there's about 2 inches available space right here. So again, I'm going to go do that on my machine, and I'll be right back. And it's like magic, I'm back. So now we have a nice square or rectangle that's been sewn around, leaving a 2-inch opening. Normally this would be the point where I drill home my students that you need to trim your corners off, but because of how we attach the elastic, it's really not a step that's necessary in this thing. If you're having a problem with your sewing machine going over humps or the thickness of the next step, which is the pleats, you might want to trim your corners because it just gives you less fabric. But my machine I know can handle it, so I'm not going to worry about it. So open up that opening and just turn it inside out. And usually once I grab the elastic, it comes out really easily. Okay, so pull that elastic out nice and tight. If you want some nice pretty corners, because you're a perfectionist like I am, you can get in there with your fingers and just poke out those corners, or you can even use a chopstick. If you like sewing tips and tricks like I do, then you should definitely go to my website, sewingbyamber.com, and subscribe to my email list. That will give you a link every week to my weekly video blog that I do, and I give a ton of sewing tips, tricks, and how-to. It comes out every Tuesday, so keep that in mind. All right, here is your big, long rectangle. Now, if you were making one of these that you needed a filter space, you could leave this guy open so that you can just stick a filter in there. You might just want to add a little bit of a top stitch on there just so that the fabric doesn't fray where you have the unfinished edge. But we're going to actually add pleats. Now, I do recommend using an iron to actually iron in your pleats. And there is a whole method that I can show you if you're interested. Like I said, we'll just set up a private lesson and I'll show you it amongst any other questions that you have, just because it's a little bit difficult to show in this environment. But for right now, I'm just going to show you how to pin them. So usually I go about 3/4 of an inch down from the top, right about where this wide elastic ends. And I just put in my first tuck on either side, and I get that pinned first. Again, I am using clips. This step might actually be better for a lot of you with pins than clips, just because you have so many folds, especially if you're making a women's or children's mask. I am making a men's mask, so it's a little bit easier for me because I have a lot more room to work with. But the idea is that you want it to be a little bit more narrow up here because you don't want this big chunky thing right by your ear. It's uncomfortable. You're still going to have the same kind of coverage in the front, but you want it just a little bit more narrow near the ear. Okay, so you got the first one in. And then I actually go and do the bottom one next. So again, I go up about 3/4 of the way, and then I tuck it down. It looks something like that. And when I press these, I press them all the way across. Even though the mask is going to open up flat, pressing them, oop, there goes my clip. Pressing them all the way across actually makes it easier for you to sew. It also pushes down the fabric. So if you're having trouble getting over the humps, that press will help you. The one thing I do want to caution you against, though, is getting the heat from your iron on the elastic. That will not be good. You will have a mess on your hands. Okay, so now we have, put this the right way. We have 2. And now I can add a third one in the middle without too much trouble. Just a little tuck. And what I usually wind up having to do when I use clips is I usually wind up having to move one of the clips over. Oop. There we go. So you can see how small I've made it. So now I'm basically going to sew around every one of my edges. I'm going to start here, go all the way down here, over those bumps, all the way up and back this way. And when you go to the spot where you're going over the bumps, you just want to be very careful as you're removing your pins or your clips that you're keeping those folds folded. That's really important. If your machine is having a little trouble, try grabbing from behind and just giving it a little pull. Be very careful of your needle and your presser foot, but usually you can get away with just giving a little bit of pull without too much trouble. But if your machine sounds really bad, call me. Please I don't want you wrecking your machine over this. Okay, so I'm going to sew that together and then I'll show you guys the final product. All right, and here we have it. You ready? There is the finished mask. Now, again, this is a men's mask, but I'll put it on just so you can see. It will be big on me. You can see how much it covers, right? So if you're making the size for your size head, then it will fit a little bit more snug, which is great. If you have any problem at this point where you need to shorten the elastic, you can just put a quick stitch down here, just like fold the elastic in half like that and just put a stitch down here, and that'll shorten the elastic for you too if you need that. Let me know if this helps you guys, and please share it. I'm begging you, share it, because people right now, they need to know this information, and that's why I created this video. And if you need some more personalized attention, I've got actually two options for you. One is you can take a private course with me remotely, where I will help you with whatever sewing troubles are ailing you. And the second option is taking my new course. It's the Essential Beginner Sewing course, and it's basically a series of lessons put together to teach you how to sew if you've never used a sewing machine before, or you've tried and just are really frustrated with your sewing machine. The full course, it launches in May. Let's share this with your friends. Sewingbyamber.com has all the information about me, what I do, and I would love to see your masks, so share them with me. When you guys make them from this tutorial, please share them so that we can all see all the cool patterns and ideas that you've made. And that's all I have for you. Thanks, guys.